So we'll go ahead and get started. Alrighty. So welcome to our Move Carlsbad workshop series. This is a 4-part series, today being the first workshop, which we'll go into a little bit more depth. Today's workshop is called Rideshare 101, a quick start guide to transportation network companies. So first I'll start a little about who Circulate is. We are a we are a local nonprofit organization who works with residents and communities across San Diego County. We have 2 branches to our organization. One of them is planning and education, which we do mobility assessments, safety campaigns, and a lot of community engagement. The other arm to our organization is policy and advocacy, where we advocate for safe streets, transit, and sustainable growth. So back into the workshop series, we have 4 of them. Today's the first about rideshare. Next week, we'll be talking about public transit. The following week, we'll be talking about walking and biking. And last, we'll talk about what's next in regional transportation and mobility updates. So our agenda today, we'll have a presenter, Aaron Gall, who I'll give you an introduction for shortly. He's going to be covering transportation network companies, give you an overview of rideshare apps, safety considerations, Carlsbad Commuter mobility updates, and then I'll be closing the presentation today talking about RideFact and what it is and how residents can access it. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Aaron Gall. He's a director at Urban Trans and has over 20 years of experience leading behavior change strategy, sustainable transportation program management, social marketing, market research, campaign development, and transportation innovation. So he's helped Urban Trans expand offices and he loves riding the bus. So I'd like to pass it over to you, Aaron.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. That was a delightful, lovely introduction. Can I get a quick verbal cue if you could see that, or actually a visual cue, Morgan? Can you see my screen now?
I can.
Awesome. And I got a thumbs up from Millie. I love it. Love it, Millie. A big thank you for giving me a reason to put on the old suit jacket. It's been a long 18 months in our houses and in our places we don't normally work. So thanks for giving me an excuse to put on my nice clothes. Today, we're going to walk through some interesting information about what often gets called a number of different things, from rideshare to ride hailing to TNCs. And hopefully everyone can walk away with way better information than they came into this meeting with on how to access this super innovative and helpful transportation. So with that being said, who am I? Well, I'm Aaron Gall, and you got a bit of a background from like what makes me who I am. But within that, I am helping the city of Carlsbad run the Carlsbad Commuter project. And that project has a bunch of awesome stuff behind it. But in a very, very high level, it's a free service offered by the city to employers, employees, and residents that helps making commuting, getting around easier, less stressful, and most importantly, better for that environment. And what's cool about our team is we got a bunch of different great expertise, not just one single brain, but a bunch of great experts behind me. And I'll show you their names in a second. I wish they could all say and hello to you, but you'll at least know the proof behind the pudding. And then also we have a series of great tools and services that, you know, when we think about these Move Carlsbad workshops, if we want to think about the legacy of them beyond what happens in these workshops, you can always look to Carlsbad Commuter for where all of that great content might be housed in the future, and few voices and folks to work with on that. And here are those beautiful names that are behind our team. From Nathan, he just welcomed a brand new baby. He would be here to to wave and show you that baby if he could. Lolly, Tom, and Jason all are some of the real brain trust that brought these kind of innovative transportation elements to Carlsbad, and we are really excited for them to be launching. And then with that, the lovely and talented Joe Stewart, who's hiding his video right now, but we do a lot of partnership. There's my buddy, there he is. All of our programming is done in concert and in partnership with Life in Action with Joe and his team. And we're really excited to work with Morgan and her team in a collective effort to make San Diego County just an awesome place to move around. So let's get weird, folks. Let's think about weird stats about what makes transportation so interesting to me and why I've dedicated 20+ years to trying to fix it. I'm actually a car guy. I actually spent my youth restoring an old muscle car. But what I find the most perplexing about transportation is humans were slightly irrational about our decision-making for how we move around. And it's not because we make bad decisions, it's just because it's complicated. A great stat that I like to start with is the average American worker will work from January 1st to April 13th, every day going to and from work. Every dollar they earn, they put and they spend it on the car to get them to work. It's the most irrational economic decision you could ever make, to spend a quarter of your salary to get you to a job. Furthermore, they've been studying the effects of our transportation choice on our health. Georgia Tech did a study of thousands of commuters, and they found that your driving time had more influence on your weight than your gender, your ethnicity, your education, or your income. So how much we sit behind the wheel driving ourselves places is impacting our health. And the one that scared me the most was that they interviewed men who survived heart attacks, and you were 3 times more likely to have been driving in traffic an hour before your heart attack. And that just shows you the stress that this transportation can cause us when we're doing it single occupant vehicle. But I try and simplify, this whole world we're in right now where transportation's complicated. There's a new innovation around every corner. Someone's promised they figured out how to solve it. And in the world that I kind of, the way I describe this to folks is my generation and any generation before us, largely on the left, the car keys was access to the world. It was access to the job that paid for you to go out on a date. That was the access to hang out with your friends. It was the access to get to the movie theater, which is how you brought in entertainment, or the library. It was access to everything. You were even taught how to do it in school as part of like a coming of age. Whereas today, the generations after me, that phone on the right is access to all those things, to dating, to finding jobs, to getting on an airplane, to digesting in entertainment. It's all done on a phone. And so it shows us why we technically are making these decisions is because technology's changed. And part of SANDAG, that's the Regional Transportation Agency. They're the folks trying to help sort out all of this. They put together a big plan. It's got 5 big moves. And in those 5 big moves is one of the topics today that we want to talk about. It's over there on the bottom left, flexible fleets. Within flexible fleets is a main component for helping to drive sustainable transportation for the region forward in the future. And it's largely because technology is allowing us to provide that convenience. So back to the subject at hand, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, of children of all ages. The subject on the left, ride hailing, is what I want to talk us through today. It often gets confused with ride sharing, which is on the right. Both of these words are part of the flexible fleets. So they're both major strategies we in Carlsbad want to employ, but they're very different in actually how they function in one pretty simple way. So let's talk about what ride hailing is, why we're here together today. It's largely this kind of system where you, the rider, are paying a fee to a company to get access to rides on demand. It's a fancy taxi system. All of it's done on your smartphone. So you got to have a smartphone and a credit card. And the driver that picks you up works for a company. And the two major companies, both in San Diego County as well as in the world, are companies called Lyft and Uber. And these trips are, like I said, they're on demand. So they pick you up where you want to be picked up and they drop you off where you want to be dropped off. Roads applying, right? And both of the riders and the drivers get to rate each other, which is a major function of these programs, in that if you're picked up by one of these systems, the driver is going to, at the end of your ride, rate how you were as a passenger. So if you're unruly, if you're being a bad driver, or you're not there on time to meet your ride, or you're cursing the whole way along for some reason, please don't do that. They can rate you on those bad behaviors. And the same goes for the driver. You get to rate the driver if they're driving erratically, if they are not following the rules, if they're not treating you as a decent human person, you get to rate them. And through these rating systems, the actual experience is managed by those companies, Lyft and Uber, so that you are given a proper ride to where you need to get to. Now, real quickly, and I don't want to spend too much time on what ride sharing is, but it is valuable and it is something that we do want to employ here in Carlsbad, which is more of your familiar terminology of carpooling, but it can occur on different scales than just carpooling. There's van pooling, there's micro transit, there's all these different other words that if we had another hour, we'd spend it, and you'll probably cover it in future workshops, which I hope you'll join. But in these, the rider, they don't typically pay the driver. Rather, you're just going to do a bit of a cost sharing, if any cost sharing at all. The driver is mostly a volunteer because it's a carpool or a van pool, so they're not technically paid by certain individuals or companies. We have a new platform, carlsbadcommuter.com, free tool that helps you find ride sharing matches. So we can make use of this system in Carlsbad. It's just launching. Be sure to bookmark that page if you can. These are often for less of these on-demand trips. They're more for pre-planned trips, repetitive trips like to and from your daily commute, or shared destinations where everyone's trying to go at the same time and they all need that same ride. So within that delineation, let's focus on ride hailing. There's those two main companies, Uber on the right, or on the left, I should say, in that black box, Lyft on the right in the pink. It's been around for over a decade, these two companies. But what's interesting, right before we went into the pandemic mode, where a lot of us really kind of stopped a lot of our transportation behaviors, they did a major study across North America, and they found that only 36% of the population had actually tried these vendors, which means the vast majority of folks had never and have never ridden Uber or Lyft. So what we want to do today is give you a little bit of a easy step intro into what these programs are and how to get signed up and what to expect as you do that. So within that, let's talk about what are some of those benefits of ride hailing, of Uber and Lyft. First and foremost, it's an enhancement to mobility. It opens doors to access to places that weren't there before. Now, I say this, and I mean this wholeheartedly. If you use Uber and Lyft for every trip you make, that is neither sustainable for your pocketbook nor our environment, because these trips have a deadhead portion to them. So they're not as eco-friendly as, say, some other trips. But for folks that do these on a temporary basis for major on-demand trips, they can really enhance your mobility and allow you to access things that you never had before and create some of these other benefits that I'll talk about. And most specifically, they really benefit folks who use other modes of transportation like the trains, the buses, their bikes, and carpooling, etc., because it is another tool in the toolbox that allows you to get around dependent on what's happening in your day. Within those enhanced mobility benefits is an independence that often isn't there for certain travelers. May not have access to a car, may not want to have a car anymore. It's too expensive for how infrequent we're traveling, may not be able to drive, period. So the independence that these tools provide are really important for things like medical appointments, socializing, going to places that, infrequently we go to, like church perhaps, or running errands, or accessing the airport or a train station to go visit some really important people or events in your life. And it's convenient. Once you get the hang of the technology, there's no need to carry cash or worry about the cash in your pockets. There's a point-to-point transportation where they're picking you up and dropping you off where you need to go. And you have this ability to schedule in advance, and all that's put into your control, allowing you again to really regain that independence that maybe you have been missing in your life. And there's that rating system where the driver rates the rider and the rider rates the driver, which creates a balance where everyone is behaving and getting a good experience at the end of the day. And that is convenience. So let's start where it's probably most important. Okay, Aaron, there's a technology out there. There's some apps out there. Sure, it can get me around. I'm a bit worried about what it all means. Safety paramount, right? Well, let's talk a little bit about the safety pieces to Uber and Lyft right now. So first and foremost, you will not have access to a driver who has not had a significant background check by both companies. The presentation and all the information you're going to see here is kind of an aggregate for both companies. I'm not going to say Lyft does this and Uber does this very often. There's a few key places I'm going to point that out. But for the most part, I want you to really feel a true understanding of what both companies offer so that you could use both. I honestly, you should think about both brands as part of your toolbox for mobility. So every driver has an extensive background check done for them for driving violations, impaired driving, violent crimes, and other key safety factors that those companies are checking for. Those are not only done once and done, they do an annual checkup on it. And they're doing ongoing criminal checks. So if you're not going to wait a year for that criminal to get booted out of the system, they get booted out of the system immediately. So your drivers are, in a word, safe. Ride ratings allow also this ad hoc safety element. So if someone starts behaving erratically on either side of this, the ride ratings allow both of those companies to check and make sure that the riders and the drivers are appropriate to be continuing along with the program. The drivers who don't meet any of these factors, boom, they're kicked to the side, okay? In the middle of this, let's all admit we're facing unprecedented pandemic times. So both of these companies are following CDC guidance. They both have health agreements built into both the driver and the rider. So when you access these apps, you're going to agree to their health standards. And the biggest one of all of them is mask wearing is mandatory for both riders and drivers. It's not optional. It's not vaccine contingent. Right now, to get into one of those vehicles, you got to be wearing it. Now, we know humans we can't control humans. So you may have someone that's on either side of that not doing it. The system they've designed allows you to both, if you're a rider, if your driver arrives and they're not wearing their mask and you don't feel comfortable either asking them to put it on, or you just don't feel comfortable, period, you can cancel for free and report that driver and you get another driver, because that's the experience they are promising. Everyone's wearing masks. They've also have enhanced cleaning protocols. Uber has a deal with Clorox. They all have all these disinfecting wipes. They're cleaning the cars far more frequently, and they have guidance on interior air management protocols, how to filter the air into the vehicles to allow great circulation. So that's all part of the rider experience. And like I said, you and the driver both have to agree to the mask. If you yourself as a rider don't wear your mask and you get reported, that app is going to require you to send in a selfie to prove you're wearing it next time you want to try and ride. Big important factor for this. Some other built-in safety factors is when you're accessing the ride, they're going to give you very specific details for the license plate number, the make and the model of the vehicle, and the driver's name and a photo of the driver. All of that's sent to you when you book a ride, so you feel very sure of which vehicle is yours and which one you're accessing. I'll talk a bit more about that in a second. Your personal information, like your phone number, is never directly shared with the driver. They can call you and they may call you, but they don't have your phone number. They're just using the app to access that phone conversation. Your pickup and drop off locations that you choose are concealed in the driver's history, so they can't go back and think about Aaron and where he lives. That all those details are deleted from their files. They all have standards and training for driver behavior that goes above and beyond what I talked about before with safety protocols for sexual assault, misconduct, keeping the ride experience safe. And then you can share your live location as you're going on your trip with your driver, with your friends. So you could text it to your family members or your friends. Hey, I'm in my Uber. Here's where I am right now. Follow along with me. You can access 911 silently within the app as well if anything goes wrong and you don't want to alert to anyone to the fact that things have gone wrong, as well as you yourself can track where you are on your trip. So you can tell, wait, we just deviated from the route. Why did we do that? And you can ask your driver, and if they don't have a good answer for that, you can make sure you feel safe during all of this. All of these features are meant to design a very safe experience where everyone is understanding what's expected of them. So that's a lot of the safety features behind this. Let's do a quick guide to using both of these. Now, again, I've built this presentation to be more of a resource guide for either app so that you can reference this in the future. You're never going to remember. Hopefully you don't have to remember my voice beyond just this delightful workshop, because it might haunt you. But you can reference some of these slides in the future and remember these steps that it takes on why you and what you're trying to do to access these apps. So with that being said, they kind of deviate from my favorite style of presentation, which is just a big old weird picture to keep your interest. These are literally written words. So bear with me, folks. Listen to the delightful sounds of my unfortunate voice. So the first step, the biggest step, is obviously, right? Get the app and create your account. So this is me trying to oversimplify that piece of it. It's pretty user-friendly once you do these actual steps on your phone, but here's what you should expect. First and foremost, you got to have a smartphone, and a smartphone that has cell service that you can access your app store. It works on both your iPhone and your Android. So whichever major phone you have, as long as you have cell service tied to it, you can access your app store. That's the first step of downloading these apps. If you don't know where your app store is, at the end of this presentation, I've got links to each of the providers where they immediately allow you to just click on your phone to go to the app store to get it. So you don't even have to open the app store. But that's where we all start. You go to your app store and you download the free apps for either of these services. Now, a big contingent here is you may have a tablet like an iPad that you use on the internet, but it doesn't tie to the cell, like you can't go out into the park and use it. These apps don't work on that. It has to be tied to a cell phone with cell service. It's a very big differentiator. You want to get that out of the gate right there at the beginning. So you've searched for either Lyft or Uber in the App Store. You hit the download button. It downloads it to your phone. Really simple, right? Well, we actually would recommend downloading both if you'd like. Again, more of a cost comparison effort, but you only need one to do this. Now, let's create our account. Before you create your account, there's a few things you want to do to be ready. First and foremost, have your cell phone number handy. Just, sometimes I even forget my own cell phone number, so I just have it jotted down because that's going to be something they're going to immediately ask you for. And an email address to tie to your account, as well as a payment option like a credit card or a bank account. And finally, one that usually trips up most people is a photo of yourself. Kids are calling it the selfie these days. But it's a photo on your phone that you take. You can have a friend take it. That is meant to allow the driver to recognize you when they pick you up. That's a key piece of creating your account. And it's usually helpful just to have that done before they even ask for it. So I always recommend those things have them ready before you take the next step, which is open the app. You downloaded it, now click open on it. You're going to likely be forced to agree to terms and conditions. These include a lot of the just basic stuff about privacy, etc. As well as we're seeing these changes as time goes on. Health protocols that you have to agree to is usually done at the first launch of the app. So they're going to ask you, hey, these are the health protocols we expect of drivers and riders. Do you agree to do these things like wearing your mask, etc.? Then entering those contact information things I just told you to have ready for you, like your cell phone number and that email address. They're going to text you once you put in your cell phone number. They're going to send you a text with a link to click to verify that your phone is your phone. So when you put in that stuff, they'll tell you, now we're going to send you a text. Click that verification step so that you're verifying who you are and that your identity matches your phone. It's a good safety step that they're doing. Now, you've created an account, you've got your app. Now you're like, ooh, I'm ready. I'm ready to take my first ride. Let's do it somewhere. I would recommend for your first ride, do it in a place that you're not stressed about being there exactly on time, just to give it your first shot and save some of those more time contingent trips like medical appointments, etc., for a time when you've used it once or twice. So maybe you're going to meet up for friends, have at your favorite restaurant, or just give it a shot, go to the library. A lot of those kind of low stress trips. So first and foremost, when you're requesting your first ride, before you start, they both have other stuff on the home screen. So don't be distracted by that. Both Uber and Lyft have expanded their services to do grocery delivery, to do scooter rentals, bike rentals, tons of stuff. That will be on the home screen. But what they all do on that home screen is they very much point you to the thing we're talking about, which is requesting a ride. So I just like to point that out in the beginning, because it often is like, wait, what is all this stuff? This isn't a ride. This is a grocery thing. And that can be confusing. So just expect to see some other options on that home screen. So the first step both of these apps want is, where do you want to go? That's basically the question they're asking in their own vocabulary. Search destination is what they say for Lyft, where to for Uber. This is the first step to begin your ride request. And then within that, the immediate decision that you get to make is this something I want to do right now? And which happens for a lot of folks. They're leaving the restaurant, they want to get home, they request a ride right now. I want to go. Or it might be one of those scheduled trips. Oh, tomorrow I do have a medical appointment and I need to be there by this time, so I want to schedule it at this time tomorrow. Both allow you to do that. Uber allows you to schedule up to 30 days in advance. Lyft allows you to schedule up to 7 days in advance. They both use very similar strategies to allow you to schedule it, but it happens right here when you're putting in where do you want to go. So for Uber, there's a little clock button right next to the where to. That's the schedule button. For Lyft, there's an actual schedule button at the bottom right after you enter your destination. Very big key differentiator on using these. Then you're going to be given quite a few options of your selected vehicle type. Now, I didn't do screenshots for all of these steps, largely because they differ by vendor. And literally, I was doing screenshots when I built this presentation. During the building of this presentation over the last 4 days, Lyft actually changed what the screen looks like. I say that because they are always continuously improving. And that really applies on your vehicle types. They have a ton of different options, but when it loads, it will load on what is the most budget-friendly option, which is what you'll likely want to choose. You can choose fancier luxury options, which have different labels that very much show you these are luxury options, and they show you how the price goes up by choosing them. In pre-pandemic times, there was an option to schedule to share the ride. So Morgan and I might match up if we were going to the same place and we didn't want to really spend a ton of money. We didn't know each other, we were going to ride together, but we were okay with riding with a stranger. Those are all discontinued right now as part of a COVID measure. They may come back, but for indefinitely in these times, they do not exist right now, just so you're aware. And then within that, you've selected your actual vehicle type and the estimate of the cost for that trip, and you're going to be asked to confirm that, and they'll send you notifications to your phone that keep you on the next steps. The next steps will vary based on if you're doing it immediately. So let's say that example where you're leaving the restaurant and you want to access a ride right now, you're immediately going to see a screen where you're going to see where your driver is and how long it'll take to get there. If you schedule this in advance, you'll get notified in advance, like say 20 minutes before your ride, of where that driver is on the day of that trip. So your phone will notify you of all of these trips and where the status of them are. So you've requested your ride. That's the second piece of this. Now, the third piece of this is meeting your driver. There's a few key pieces to this that I really wanted to point out. Like I just said, your phone will keep telling you notifications about both when they should be arriving and largely where they are on the map. So if you're a map geek like me and you like to look at maps and where the person is and just be like, wow, they're way over there. That's weird. Don't know why they're over there, but that's where they're coming from. You can watch them along on the app as they come to pick you up, and the notifications will start to warn you it's time to start going to the meeting place. Let's say you're inside and you know that you're meeting out in a roundabout that's outside the restaurant or outside the building you're in. You're going to want to start to head there, and you want to know that you can easily access the place of that meeting point without too much trouble. All of that will be displayed on the app. You'll be able to see it, but you'll want to make sure that you have the time to get to that point. You're going to, again, on that screen, it'll tell you the vehicle, the picture of the driver, their license plate number. And as you're out there waiting for that ride to pick you up, you're going to be able to look down at your phone and look at the vehicles approaching and match that up based on the details. I like to use the license plate because I don't know a ton of make and models of cars anymore, and they all kind of look alike to me. I usually start with the color of the vehicle, and then I'm like, oh, that looks right. And then I use like the first 3 letters and numbers of the license plate. Boom, that's got to be the person, and give it a little signal. Is that them? And they notify. You can see that they're also looking for someone. If that driver can't find you, whether because they just don't see you or you're not outside yet, they may call you. So expect an unknown number to perhaps pop up at this stage. You're going to want to pick up that call and just make sure that you're able to figure out where to meet, and that everyone knows where everyone is. Drivers can wait for you, but they don't have to wait for you. That's an agreement between you and the driver. So that'll largely be based on, hey, if you're going to offer a tip, or if you are ready to go. So which is why we often recommend you are always ready to go, so that the driver doesn't have to cancel on you and drive away because you didn't show up in a normal amount of time. And that's usually just a couple of minutes. And then the driver is usually going to confirm your name as you're entering their vehicle. Usually people will sit on the back side of the car. So if the driver's up front, just like a taxi, you're going to sit as far away from them in the back of the vehicle so you can see them, and they're going to look at you and they're going to say your name, and you're going to confirm, and you're going to say their name usually, and you're going to get into the ride and off you go. And now, not all of your drivers are going to help you the same. So if you've got packages or other things, they don't have to help you, say, bring your luggage into your house or bring your groceries into your house. They do all have to accommodate you, though. If you have, let's say, a foldable walker, or you do have groceries or luggage, they have to accommodate that, get it into the vehicle at the very minimum. Now, with that, ending your ride. Last step here, bear with me, folks. Hopefully you're loving this delightful verbal walkthrough. So as you've ended your ride and you're getting out of your vehicle, the app is going to prompt you to complete the ride and pay the driver after they drop you off. There's no rush here. You can get out and get safely to the curb and inside of a building. You don't have to do all these steps before you leave the vehicle. So you can get out and go into wherever you need to, and then complete the ride after that step, which is largely just rating your driver. Again, did you have a great experience? And if you want to provide a tip. Now, tips aren't not mandatory, but they are encouraged by both platforms. 100% of the tips go to the driver, so the companies don't get a cut of it, and they will make it very easy for you to tip. It's part of the actual transaction itself. So you're not carrying cash, you're not even having to do math. They can do the 20% or the 10% or the 15% for you. And again, the ride rating is the important thing. They both use a 1 to 5 stars. Higher the rating, the better your experience was. So you had a delightful trip. You loved every bit of it. The person was on time. The car was clean. They traveled very safely. You loved it. Give that person a 5 stars. They did all those things poorly, 1 to 2 stars. If you rank someone less than 3 stars, you will not be matched with them again ever in the system. And those sorts of low ratings will start to create these kind of investigations into the driver to make sure they're behaving as they should. A reminder, you get rated too, so you have to be on your best behavior as well. And then tips for I already mentioned the tips for the driver, and then you close out your app till the next time. A few last resources here that I wanted to provide in as I close up here before I turn it back over to Morgan. Here's those frequently asked questions. A million things you might be wondering. Both of these systems, Lyft and Uber, have really easy to use frequently asked questions. I'm going to put that in the chat as well as it's in this PowerPoint. There's also a few other things that you should be aware of. There's a system out there called GoGo Grandparent that is largely designed with seniors to help with scheduling Ubers and Lyfts specifically, as well as other key tasks that might be in your life, like lawn care, grocery delivery, and medication delivery, etc. And they add another layer of vetting on top of all of the vetting I've already talked about. But they have a system and a fee. This isn't an endorsement of their system, but largely an awareness that they exist. The wheelchair fleets for both Uber and Lyft are in pilot stages. Neither of them are currently available in San Diego County, but that's the beauty of these Uber and Lyft type programs. Their innovations keep pushing things forward. So perhaps in the future, we actually might see wheelchair securement type fleets for these actual brands that I've talked about. Both of these companies are heavily involved in San Diego market for pilots to advance all trips. So keep your eye out as things probably are going to come out soon. And then there are 2 pilots underway specifically for seniors by each company. Again, these aren't endorsements for these companies, just want to give you awareness. For Lyft, they have a partnership with Great Call and the Jitterbug phones. So I wanted to provide that awareness there, where Great Call customers who have those Jitterbug phones just have to press 0 and they can book a Lyft for them. And Uber partnered with 24-hour home care operator service. And it's a similar thing where you can call that number and they can provide that. It's only currently available in these 3 states, and luckily we're in one of them. Last slide here. We do a lot here at Carlsbad Commuter. Beyond what we just talked about for ride hailing, carlsbadcommuter.com is a place where you'll be able to access anything transportation moving forward for the city when it comes to sustainable transportation. It's a one-stop shop, an access to talking to professionals that just like myself and the team I talked about before. We have a ride matching system for ride sharing, the more carpool-esque. We offer incentives for sustainable trips, as well as resources for a lot of our workforce that's emerging out of the pandemic, and resources to kind of equip that future work as it relates to Carlsbad and awesome employee transportation programs. So with that, this is my closing slide of that tool on the Carlsbad Commuter to help you plan your journeys. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to the lovely, talented Morgan, who's going to talk about Ride Fact.
Thank you so much, Joe. That was great, very thorough and enthusiastic, and we learned a lot. So I'm going to share my screen now and talk to you all about Ride Fact.
Hey, before we jump into it, Morgan, there was one question in the chat, a quick one. I know we wanted to save questions to the end, but Aaron, if you can join real quick, what percent is a typical tip for Uber or Lyft?
I think that's the $1,000,000 question I often ask individuals. The younger group, millennials and younger, they're heavy tippers. I think, we could debate why. They're usually in the 20% range, but anything between 10 to 20% is often the normal tip. And it's largely, dependent on what was the experience. Did they get you through some troublesome transportation issues, like some crazy traffic? Were they a delightful conversation? You can largely base that tip on the experience that you've had with them, but anywhere between 10 and 20, and the app itself will give you those prompts. You can easily just use a thumb and pick one of those options. Back to you, Morgan.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was a great question. I know that that's something I face when I'm using these apps, Uber or Lyft. So thanks for asking that. So moving over to Ride Fact. So FACT it stands for Facilitating Access to Coordinated Transportation. Pretty straightforward. Essentially, they help you connect to transportation options. So FACT provides low-cost transportation options for seniors and people with disabilities, and it serves all of San Diego. They're based in Oceanside, funded through grants by SANDAG and Transnet Sales Tax. And they have a service called Ride Fact, which they call a dial for ride service, which essentially means you pick up the phone, you call and reserve a ride. So pretty similar to Uber and Lyft, as Aaron just described, but you don't need a smartphone for this option. And they specifically target seniors and persons with disabilities. So Ride Fact is great as a great transportation option for people who don't qualify for ADA paratransit or other transportation programs. So in addition to Ride Fact, FACT maintains a database of current transportation providers countywide. And so when you call them, they may refer you to other transportation providers if you're eligible for those programs, and just connect you to all possible options. So most trips provided by Ride Fact are for medical purposes, social trips, maybe you're visiting your family, maybe you're doing some grocery shopping. So it's a really good tool to have, and you can request your rides anywhere between 1 to 7 days ahead of travel versus the instant ride request in Uber or Lyft. So they're pretty similar, but also a little different. So we'll go more into that. So where are people going using Ride Fact? As I mentioned, most trips are for medical purposes. So about 55% you see people are going to doctor appointments, dialysis, blood, donating blood, anything medical. 28% are for social trips, visiting friends, family. Maybe you're taking a trip to the Carlsbad Senior Center for a game night or for dinner. And then 6% is for shopping, and that can be grocery shopping, running errands. Really, you can choose where you need to go, and they will accommodate you. So Ride Fact has subsidized fares, and they are meant to be low cost, affordable, curb to curb transportation options. And what that means is they pick you up at your curb, at your front of your house, and drop you off at the curb in front of where you're going to go. And you can book a return ride as well. But the one-way fares typically are seen here. So if you're just doing a short trip, 0 to 5 miles, that'll be about $2.50. 5 to 10 miles, about $4. 10 to 20 miles, $5, and 20 plus miles, about $10. So definitely low cost options and less volatile. Whereas Uber and Lyft, you can find really cheap rides as well, but it might vary if there's an event that day, or if it's raining and there's a higher demand for rides, those prices might be higher. So this is typically in these ranges and more affordable. So now I'll talk to you about how you can make a reservation through Ride Fact in just 5 easy steps. So step one, step one, excuse me, you pick up the phone and you call the phone number between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, and you can make a reservation for your ride. And I'll have my colleague Octavio drop this number in the chat so you can have it throughout the presentation and write it down for your future reference. So once you call the number, they are going to ask you for the details of travel. So you're going to want to provide them with your home address or wherever your origin address is and your destination address, and let them know if you need a return ride to or if this is just one way. You'll tell them your desired pickup time and any special mobility needs, whether you need a wheelchair accessible vehicle, maybe you have a service animal, just let them know of any special needs you may have, and they can do their best to accommodate you. And that includes if you have any companions with you, like a personal care assistant. Step 3, they will give you a quote. The quote is based on total distance traveled, and there might be a more convenient option that isn't RideFact, and it might be through another provider. So out of the 30,000 trips roughly they took last year, almost 100% of them were accepted, but there was about 4% of them where they actually encouraged those users to another more convenient mode of travel. But if that's the case, they'll tell you right on the phone and explain it to you in very easy steps. So if your ride is approved, which most likely it will be, you'll be given a quote and you'll just have to have that ready, cash in hand, day of. So on the day of your ride, you'll just wait at your curb, outside at the curb at your pickup time, and they might arrive anywhere between 15 minutes of the pickup time. So if your pickup time is 10 a.m., they'll arrive anywhere between 10 a.m. to 10:15 a.m. So have your fare ready, cash in hand. And then step 5, enjoy the ride. So that's all you need to know about RideFact for today. And now, if you had any questions for me or for Aaron today, please ask them now, or you can write your question in the chat. In the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat box. Go ahead and click that and write your question down.
We have some good ones in the
Awesome.
chat, some related to Uber and Lyft and some also related to RideFact. So while I have you on the screen, let's see, how soon can you order a RideFact ride? I suppose that means how, like, could you order it now and then it's a day in advance, correct?
Yeah, and the reason for that is that there's only so many drivers, whereas Uber and Lyft, there's tons of drivers. And I think if this number is the most accurate number, I saw that they had about 20 vendors, which means they're special vans, and they're trying to branch that out right now. So there's limited availability. So the chances of someone being available to come get you right now are rather low. So I don't know if you can make it day of, but from my research or my understanding, you need to make it at least a day in advance and at most 7 days in advance.
Okay, and then I think associated another one with RideFact. I think Aaron answered the question about if they're grocery shopping, you do need to, for Uber and Lyft, you do need to have request a ride back. What about RideFact? Do you know if they will wait for you if you go grocery shopping before or after your trip?
That actually is a great question that I don't know the answer to. I'll do a little research while we're talking and see if I can get that that question to the resident by the end of this.
Okay. And then Aaron, if you're still on, I can't see people's screens, by the way. How far can Uber and Lyft go? Will they take me to LAX, for example? Oh,
both systems have regional boundaries that try and keep the drivers in a kind of a zone. The last I looked, I believed there was about 100-mile range. They don't cross international borders, so sorry, you can't go south. The LAX specifically, I've never tested that one, so I don't know if that would fall in the 100 range. But what's beautiful about the apps is you can test that question anytime you want by just putting in those destinations, and it'll tell you. And that could be variable. That's the kind of the interesting piece about both of these companies is some of the specific parameters change, but you can always ask the app if it will do it at that time. And similar to that question, Dave, you had two questions about the price. So is it more expensive late at night? It's a demand-based pricing, which means it's not the late at night that causes it to get the more expensive. It's the supply of drivers that are out on the roads that are willing to take rides and the number of people requesting. And so if that's a midday big like concert that happens, the price will likely go up. If it's, you know, everyone's leaving the bar, it's last call, the price will likely go up during that supply and demand issue, which again is kind of why a lot of folks like to either schedule rides, because when you schedule rides, you can actually set your rate. You can book the rate in, as well as just, you know, you open the app. You don't book the ride until you are agreeing to the rough estimate of the price. It'll tell you if there's these high demand pricing so that you can specifically not be duped to accidentally get a $400 ride home. And the Uber and the Lyft systems, they are the ones creating the costs. It's not a negotiation. You're basically agreeing to the price they put up on the screen, which is why I like to have both apps, because I do find the prices are different between the two programs in the same moment. And again, that goes back to that supply and demand.
Awesome. Yeah, just anecdotally, the distance, I was talking to an Uber driver who drove from someone from San Diego airport to LAX airport recently, and he told me that it's not that uncommon to have that happen. So they'll go pretty far for sure. Back to Ride Fact. Who is eligible for Ride Fact? Is there a minimum age?
So they ask for people 60 and over, or people with disabilities.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. I think if I'm not mistaken, Morgan, that and Aaron, that captures all of the questions in the chat if I'm not seeing any other ones. And just again, to reiterate, I mentioned this in the chat, we have been recording this. We'll send a link to the recording to the participants as well as the slides that are a part of this program as well. So I know that'll be helpful for you all to have the step-by-step, you know, how to order the Uber or the Lyft, and similarly with the Ride Fact, you know, the 5 or 6 steps that you know, you'll have to take in order to make that happen. The phone number is also in the chat, and the phone number is also on the slides. So with that, Morgan, do you want to close this out? And then actually, I will do something before Morgan closes us out. I'm putting a link in the chat to the Age-Friendly Carlsbad initiative. So this Move Carlsbad campaign in partnership with with Circulate San Diego, San Diego Foundation, and AARP is part of the city's Age-Friendly Carlsbad initiative. And so the city is a part of the AARP network of age-friendly states and communities, and we are going to be going to council very soon to approve the Age-Friendly Carlsbad Action Plan. Before we pass the plan, we wanted to kind of get a head start on some of the programming that's mentioned in the plan. So that's where we have these transportation workshops in partnership with the Senior Center and Circulate San Diego. So I encourage you all to visit the Age-Friendly Carlsbad website. The link is there, but it's carlsbadca.gov/age-friendly-carlsbad. You can learn more about the efforts there and what we've been done in the past and what's going on in the future, and a little bit more about these workshops. So if you hadn't attended a workshop before, appreciate you doing that now. And then with that, Morgan, I will have you close this out.
Yeah, thanks so much, Joe. Thank you all so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And this is just the first workshop in a 4-part series. So please join us next Tuesday at 10 a.m. for our second workshop. Thank you all again. Please reach out to me with any other questions. My email is there on the screen. Please visit the link at the bottom to see the Move Carlsbad workshop series and more about the Age-Friendly Carlsbad initiative at the Senior Center. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Morgan.
All right, see you all next week.